Welcome everybody to another installment of the Show Will Go On webinar series. It is week 19 and we're going to talk about selling streaming events by focusing on the pre-sale. I'm very excited about this topic. I've been very immersed in it for the past couple of days, trying to bring you, get some ideas pulled together for you so you can present what you're doing or what you can do for your customers a little bit more effectively, and we can reduce some of this noise and all these tire kicking fishing expedition proposals that we're writing. So if you're new to this, welcome. I'm Tom Stimson, president of the Stimson Group. Here's all those places that you can find me, and I hope you'll pop in somewhere. Visit me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of articles and blog posts there. Of course, the website, subscribe to AV Matters, subscribe to Intentional Success newsletter, all sorts of ways to get more of the content that I love to share with you guys. This event, this webinar series has been supported by Avixa. We can't thank them enough for this. Beth Knight is the member representative for us at Avixa. She's on the staff there and can help you become more involved and know how to make better use of your membership or get involved in the Live Events Council or any of the other councils and committees that you might be interested in joining. Do go spend some time on the Avixa website. There's a ton of resources there. Very worthwhile, good use of your time right now. And they're doing a great job of sharing information, partnering with the U.S. Travel Association, who is a busy lobbying group trying to help the meeting and incentive industry in the travel industry have influence in Congress in the U.S. Well, to get us that next round of relief funding so that we can hang on to our businesses and be there for our clients and our employees and our families. If you need some more time from me, you're welcome to book that. Reach out and schedule an appointment. We'll talk about it. I offer several practical coaching packages that can help you through the short term, or if you want something more long term, happy to talk about all of those things. Now, let's talk about the fun stuff. Okay? One of the things that's a recurring theme in my conversations with the industry, the threads I'm seeing on Facebook when I dare to wander over into that quagmire, is a lot of resistance to streaming events. I mean, the resistance is palpable. Yes, we all want live events to get back together. Yes, we all agree that face-to-face meetings are very, very valuable, and it's not streaming events that are keeping us from doing that. Streaming events are what we're doing because we can't do these other things. And I agree with the argument. Online doesn't replace in person, but that's also like saying chocolate cake doesn't replace zucchini. I mean, they're two different things. So in the world of streaming events is a train chugging down the tracks, and a lot of people are on it. A lot of our clients are on it. Either you're on the train, you're running behind it, chasing it, or you're in front of it and you're about to get splattered. Digital transformation is happening. Lots of things have been waiting in the wings and have been developing for years that suddenly have a very strong foothold. The trend is this is going to go on forever. And we've talked about this for months in this webinar series. There's going to be a streaming component to what we do probably forever. And certainly in the foreseeable future, and even hybrid events. I mean, we will get hybrid events soon, hopefully, but there's always going to be that streaming component. And by the time there's not, there'll be something else going on that we'll need to learn about. So here's a couple of pieces of data I grabbed. I found this, I didn't find it on the PCMA website, but I did find referencing the PCMA, 80% of business event professionals have canceled events as a result of COVID-19. I'm assuming the other 13 didn't have any events available to cancel. 70% are planning to move at least some parts of face-to-face events to a virtual platform. Not a surprise there. They're probably either planning that or planning on not having the event at all. 66% of postponed events. Again, this means 34% probably didn't have one. 40% of those who have not run virtual events or are planning to, who have run virtual events or are planning to, they will have said that they will not generate any revenue from that event. So the whole idea that, you know, online is a great way to generate income and you can all this stuff, not everybody is taking that route yet. That is not the sole purpose of doing online streaming events, having archives and the ability to put ads in the corner of a streamed event. So lots of folks are not taking that route yet. And 24% are worried that digital events will cannibalize face-to-face events in the future. Okay, most of us can agree with that. Are we worried about it? Maybe not as many as we think. So now, what does all of this therefore mean to us? Well, first of all, that's the wrong question. What we need to be asking is, what does all of this mean for your customers? Because that's what really matters right now. And that's especially what today's webinar is about. Every type of in-person encounter has a digital counterpart, okay? We need to stop focusing on how this affects you and pay attention to how this affects your customer and their constituents, okay? Digital begs for enhancement. And enhancing is what we do, right? Any kind of event, any one of these things on the screen, and you can think of many, many more, can be fully digital. They can be a virtual event, but they could also be a hybrid event. Why does the customer need to have that meeting? What's the purpose? What's the outcome that they're trying to achieve? Can we make it better for them? Can we give them a better experience? Can we give them a better outcome? That's where we add value. That's where we need to be spending our time and energy. Now, having said all that, you know, I'm on 20, 30 Zoom calls a week. I'm on my phone all the time looking at stuff. I'm constantly reading up on new things. It's very easy to get digital burnout. And right now, many of the folks I'm talking to, many of the business owners, have not remembered to take a day off in the past 3 or 4 months. So you're not just digitally burned out, you're burned out in general. If you're trying to embrace this digital world, if you're trying to do better at streaming, if you're trying to get your head around all of this and you're just feel like you're exhausted with it, that's okay. Take a break. Here's how to avoid that burnout. Refresh yourself, and then remember why you're embracing this path. You have a business that is trying to survive. You have employees and family that you're trying to help them put groceries on the table. And the fact of the matter is, you love doing events. So this is what events are right now. This is why you're on that path. You've had goals. You've had successes. Okay? You've had some failures. Talk about them. Put those things out there. All of us on this chat, we're in new territory here. You know, 6 months ago, none of us imagined that this was going to be part of our world. And yet here we are. And we're trying stuff and we're messing it up. And if you share your screw up, somebody else might avoid it. And if they share their success, you might be able to duplicate it. And that's kind of what community is all about. So this is hard for you. This is the top hard one. Don't overemphasize technology. When I get some of you guys together and we start talking about streaming, you immediately go to the technology. And it's a rabbit hole. We can talk tech all day long, but it doesn't do anything for our customers. They don't actually care how we accomplish any of this stuff. All they care about is what it will do for us. And by talking about tech, you're contributing to your own digital burnout because the technical solutions are daunting. There's so many of them. You can't know everything and you want to know everything, and it's probably beating you up. In your organization, in your peer groups, in your colleague or your community of folks that you deal with, encourage everyone to make a contribution. I mean, I do this around my house. I have a wife and child who are very savvy about these things, and they look at it from a very different point of view. They contribute to everything that I am trying to do for my community and giving a fresh perspective. So reach out to folks. We're all going to look pretty silly if we don't. I'd rather be silly with a small group of people, correct your thinking or learn something or improve upon it, and then take it to market. And then the last thing is look for the quick wins and build on them. Little victories. If I can learn one new thing today that I can incorporate into my lexicon, incorporate into my platform, that's a great day. And then tomorrow I want to add to that or expand upon it. Celebrate those wins, and you'll spend less time worrying about all the things that you haven't done or you haven't gotten to yet, which is kind of what digital burnout is all about. I mean, I've got an old classmate, distant Facebook friend really, who was very involved in web search engines back in the early 90s. And he actually posted a picture on his Facebook the other day, and his company created this. It was a CD-ROM that had all 250,000 web links on the internet, and they updated it every month and they sent it out to their customers. You subscribe to it. 250,000 hyperlinks, right? Imagine being in the early 90s thinking your job was to get to every one of them. That's digital burnout, and that's where a lot of us are. So part of digital burnout is you haven't found the right digital community where you can communicate with each other on with the same goals, the same intent, where you can share ideas, you can learn, you can explore, you can ask questions that other people understand, you can validate other people's ideas, and you can advance your own thinking in that process. And trust me, that's not Facebook right now. LinkedIn's not a great place for this because nobody's vulnerable on LinkedIn. Everybody's super successful on LinkedIn. We need to find a digital community for us, and so that we can fill that gap, so that we can do some of the stuff you guys do in the chat. We need to expand that. We need to do a bigger version of that. And so I'm spending some time trying to figure out what that looks like and what we can do to make that available for you, so that we all have a place where we can grow and learn together as we navigate through all of this. So if you've got some ideas about that, shoot me an email. I'd love to chat. But now let's talk about selling streaming events. So this is kind of an update. I've talked a little bit about in past webinars about how you would structure a proposal for selling a service of a streaming event, because there's not a lot of parts and pieces that you can itemize. There's not a lot of barcodes you get to scan. It's not like selling a show, except it's a show, but it's different. So let's forget about what we know about selling shows and look at what we're dealing with right now. Many of you have told me, and I was calling this something different yesterday, and then somebody on the group coaching call called it phishing, and I said, yeah, phishing, right? We're going to call it phishing. There's a lot of buyers out there fishing for proposals, right? Now, we used to have salespeople who went out on fishing expeditions to get RFPs so that they could write a proposal. The difference between that fishing and the fishing that we're dealing with now is who's the fish, right? So we have clients who are fishing for us to give them information to better inform them so they can make a decision that we're not part of. Now, the good part of salespeople fishing for RFPs, at least there was an RFP and we knew there was a piece of work behind it, because in the show business, there is a show. If there are dates, it is booked, there's a website, there's registration, probably before we even get involved with it. So an RFP was like a sure thing. There's actual work there. The inquiries we're getting right now about streaming events, there's not necessarily any there. So the bad part of this is that we have buyers fishing for quotes because they don't know what to ask for. And many of you say that, my clients don't know what they need. I'm thinking, how awesome is that? I would love clients who don't know what they need. They are looking for companies like yours right now. They're fishing you're looking for people who are willing to quote on anything, because they can take that bit of information and add it to their knowledge base and then go to the next company. And if they get 10 companies to look at their situation, they will glean, or they'll find the right salesperson who will help them get to where they need to be. And I want to teach you how to be the right salesperson to get them where they need to be. Okay? So customers are fishing because they want to define a scope of work. So you're going to help them define the scope of work. They want to determine a value. They think your price is too high. And they also want to see, do you know what you're doing? right? And I want to help you do all three of these things, but I want you to have a job at the end of it. And let's talk about how we get there. So our situation is right now, every time we do a quote or something is out of the date, or we have some dates held from a job that we quoted before the pandemic, it's sitting out there and we think something might happen. There's a lot of false hope on your calendars. You have unconfirmed proposals or proposals that need to be reconfirmed. We have clients who aren't learning anything from the new proposals that we're writing because they're going to go ask somebody else for more information. You're not ending up with anything while you're writing all of these proposals. Your close rates are going way down. You're writing 10 proposals for 1, maybe 2 real pieces of work. Now, we're used to this in the integration world. You know, if you're in systems integration, projects are a long game. A building project, if they decide to build a building, they will build the building. Nobody knows when. They think it'll happen here, but it could happen later. And you could write a quote that won't happen for 2 or 3 years, and hopefully you get to revisit that quote. Live events people, we're used to them having a date, know how many people they have attending, what the venue is. It's very specific and it's looming. Okay, there's a deadline involved in all of this. There's clear parameters tied to the audience size and the content. And right now, your customers aren't sure how big their audience will be or if they'll even have one. They don't know how many people will be in person. They have no idea how many streaming viewers they're going to get. They're not even sure if they need to stream yet. If they aren't tied to a venue with a specific set of dates and can limit the live audience in size, right, which really increases their venue options, then they don't actually have to pre-book an event 3, 6, or 12 months in advance, do they? Which makes it easier for them to go fishing, which is what they're doing. Now, you've got to get out of this cycle, okay? Quit writing proposals for work that isn't there. Help them answer the unanswerable questions that they have, okay? That's how you're going to add some value to this, and hopefully you will get to a better opportunity. So you've got a lot of offers that you've put out there. I look at your websites, I read your newsletters. Hey, you built a studio, good for you. We do streaming, yay. We can help, we're open, we have a cleaning protocol. Hey, anyone out there? I have a sneaky suspicion right now no one's listening to that anymore because they've heard it from everyone and it doesn't answer any question that they have. It just tells them what it is that you want to do for them. So looking at your marketing and sales effort, you tell people you do these things, but that doesn't seem to move the needle. And if you get the buyer to engage with you, you're really quick to write a proposal because it's the stepping stone to buying. You are writing proposals because that is how you're used to communicating. Your customers are not ready for a proposal in most cases. Okay? They need information to help them decide what to do. With the very rare exception of people who know how to buy and produce a streaming event, who know what to ask for, everybody else is fishing. So we need to educate them. And we need to sell them the what, not the how, but we have to provide enough how to make the what look possible to them. Help buyers suspend their disbelief in preconceived objections so that you can get them to the next stage of the conversation. Marketing comes before sales. We need new marketing. We've talked about marketing. We talked about how you're changing your flow and your signals and your messages on marketing. This has to happen before we try and sell. I was looking for an example of a very generic AV rental website. You know, how most people have, here's our equipment, here, you know, click on audio, here's our audio gear, lighting, all that kind of stuff. And I happened to find this site, which was at the top of the ad page. They paid a lot of money to be at the top of my search above some other very large companies. And I went to their website and it actually had ipsum lorem on it. It had placeholder text. It was an absolute disaster. But this website and this approach to messaging and marketing is not what we need in the streaming world. We can't lead with equipment. we have to lead with something that's important to the customer, and never has that been more apparent than right now. So before you write a proposal, here's the process. You're going to educate the buyer. You're going to match your resources to their needs, but their needs come first. Your resources don't matter if they don't actually meet a need that the customer has. Nobody cares if you have a studio if they don't need one, right? We have to make the buyer comfortable because they have to see themselves doing business with you, and we have to connect the right solution to their needs. So it's all about scope, fit, and finish, and price. So once we know what their needs are and we have those solutions, now we have, generally 3 levels of options. How big of a scope is it? How high a level of fit and finish is it? And then what are the pricing levels that they might come to expect? So we have a lot of work to do before we get there. And rather than take you through a long series of slides to explain how you do this, I made a tool. So I've spent the past 2 days building this tool for you. I will share the link on the replay page after the webinar is over when I post the replay on this, so you can go get it. And this is a shared document, so you can copy this and do your own version of this. And this is the roadmap for selling digital events. And I'm going to share some screenshots with you to help you understand what's going on here, because I know you can't actually, you can't read any of that right now. It's okay, you're not expected to. I'm going to zoom in on some stuff. But the one thing I want to point out here on this large, busy looking map is the proposal. And the proposal is the last thing on the roadmap. So this is the roadmap to a proposal. How many steps do you have before you actually deliver a proposal? Well, guess what? I'm going to show you that you need a few more. But don't worry, there are several different paths to a proposal represented in here. So I didn't just add 27,000 different elements to your proposal development process, but I am going to identify some things that are very important for you to develop to educate your customers. All right. So at the top of the chart, and we're going to see the start here. This all starts under the assumption that someone has reached out to you, or maybe you reached out to them, doesn't matter, where the client says, we have an event or a meeting or a conference or whatever it is. They say, we have something, we need, and by implication, need something from you. So the light blue was always what the customer is saying. And then the dark blue is your response. And what do we need? What's our response to, oh, we have an event? Well, my response is, well, is this an event that you've done before? Because that gives me the most information with the shortest possible question. And the way and you can develop your own question, because this is a template and you can fill everything back in yourself the way that you want to do it. But here's the question that I'm keying off. And the example that I'm showing on here is that this client says, no, we've never done anything online before. Well, they didn't actually answer the question I was asking about the event. They answered my next question, which is fantastic. Okay. We've probably done an event before, but we've never done anything online, which instantly tells me they're asking to be educated. So what is my next step? Spoiler alert, it's not write a proposal. It's develop a resource, share a resource with them that I have developed that helps them understand the types of online events and the questions that they need to consider to move on. So I have a path for people, buyers who are new to events or new to online events, right? So everything that you see that's in that pale color, this tan color, is a marketing resource that you need to develop. And don't panic. Oh, we don't have a marketing team. We don't know how to do graphics. 90% of this, there's a link on the web that you could share, or you could take that information, throw it in a PowerPoint, create your own PDF of this sort of thing. There are lots of ways for you to get here. Don't overthink it, because once you see how this works, you're going to go, why haven't we done this before? We need to get after this. So I'll take you through a couple of things, and identify the things that are really important on each of these screens. So we're just looking at a small section of that really large screen. Now, sometimes you're going to ask, have we done this event before? And you find out that you have a client who's already very savvy. So yes, we do this event all the time. I have a detailed RFP for you. Basically, they're the experienced event producer. That's a completely different path. you know how to do this one already, right? You've been writing, responding to RFPs for years. Here's a savvy buyer. Everything you've done in the past still works. So, but you do have to go through the steps, as you would in any good customer development process, of determining, does the buyer know enough about you to judge your response to any question? In other words, can I tell you more about my business? Can I share the products and services that we provide in context of your request? Now I can, maybe schedule a meet and greet, take them on a tour, do a little WebEx together. And my goal is to always, in an RFP managing process, which is a whole nother webinar, my goal is always to take the original request and reposition it in a way that speaks to my advantage of being the people who should be doing that work. So we go through, we describe that process in here, and eventually, much more so than anything else we're going to talk about, you will probably end up talking about the services you provide and the products you provide. And we create a place on this template where you can list those things out so that you have go-to talking points, all right? So we don't want to spend too much time here because that's the stuff you already know how to do. Let's go to the stuff that you don't necessarily know how to do. And that is process something like, I got to get to a screen where I can read this. If you ask the client, has this a meeting that you've done before? And they say, yes, but we think we need to use Zoom this time, I think. That's a response that takes you down a path. You have somebody who is probably new to Zoom. They might be new to streaming, but we don't know whether they need Zoom or streaming, but they brought up Zoom. So let's take them down the path to see, do they need to be better educated about Zoom? So ask them about their experience on that, and then you've got some documents and resources that you can share with them, such as a resource on basic Zoom meetings, a resource on the types of Zoom meetings that apply to larger audiences and how those features and benefits work for you. You might provide a resource on using non-synchronous content or pre-recorded content to help them improve and make a more consistent Zoom experience, depending on which answer they give you. How much experience do you guys have with Zoom? Well, we're all newbies. Bam, I'm taking them straight to the basic Zoom meetings document. They say, oh, we use Zoom internally for small meetings only, but implying we've never used it for a larger event. Great, then I need to take them to that resource. Okay, I don't give them more information than they need, but I don't take them backwards. I meet the customer where they are on their knowledge base. What this template does for you is it identifies starting points for customer knowledge based on their responses. You can apply your experience and you can make it work and use the template for yourself and redesign it to meet your needs and use that to train your salespeople. For instance, if they come back and say, our concern is working with presenters in multiple time zones. So they understand Zoom in larger events, but now they're bringing in outside presenters in multiple time zones and some things that they don't get. Let's introduce them to the idea of pre-recorded content and live chat and how that can work for them. So don't give them more than they need. We don't need to talk about our studio yet. We don't need to talk about switchers and cameras and projects and green screens. We've got to get them to the point where we can engage them again, answer their questions, and take them to the next step. So I think you'll have fun wandering around this tool. Now, that was one of like 4 or 5 paths I put in there for, depending on how the customer, the potential buyer, answered the question about have they done this meeting before. Now we get them to the point in time where the client's saying, well, hey, I have enough information, or I have enough information to ask you, what's the next step? Now, for most of us, what's the next step should be demonstration of the capabilities that we need for their particular situation. So we're taking notes as they talk. We're identifying needs and concerns that they have that we need to rise up to. And we're collecting a list of things that we're going to go over with them that says, hey, what I hear from you is you need your event to be 100% virtual. You're going to probably need some pre-recorded presentations because of the time zone issue, but you also want live presentations because you want that interaction between some presenters on the screen and the chat. Good. And you want the audience that's remote, their questions are as important as people who might be in the room. You want simple streaming access because you're not a technical group of people. You want to archive it for later because this is important information and you want people to have access. All of these elements are important, okay? And you've captured this in the conversation. So if I review each of those things, the executives all want to present from the same location. So we want that consistent look and feel when they all walk up and stand in front of the set or the screen or at the lectern or whatever it might be. So I take all these bits of information and say, here is a general package. Are all these items, go through them one at a time. Is this what you had in mind? Does this make sense for you? Is this something that was actually important? Have I missed anything? And then you could say, typically in events like this, if we do a very basic Zoom version of this with minimal pre-production, companies will spend 10 to 25,000, whatever your range is. If we add this level, you give them a new range, you're doing a budget check. And what's important in this process is several times in here, I do budget checks, okay? And once I have verification that everything I'm talking about addresses their needs and I've gotten past the budget check, okay, then I'm in a position to finally build a proposal. Okay? Trust the process. Skipping this is not really any different from any sales process I've ever taught you, but for many of us, streaming is new territory, virtual meetings is new territory, and we kind of forget our training when we're faced with a new situation, new stress, new urgencies, unfamiliar territory. It's the same process. Give yourself a template, because one of the things that you need to do is identify what your products and services are. Okay, services you provide are macro things, full service event production. That's what your website says, right? But can you manage multiple locations, support remote presenters, online experiences, audience engagement, brand experiences, post-event development, web development. There's so many things that you can provide as a service, which are different from your products, which the customer may be interested in, particularly your technical buyer, that savvy event producer would like to know that you have a creative director in-house, you have a graphic designer who can design all the backgrounds and the outlines and the frames that go with all of your screen sets for the meeting. You have a broadcast control room. Yes, we have a studio, but we can also do a remote studio. I've got Zoom licenses, I have streaming platform licenses. All the things that you do that are products, that are tactical solutions, technical crew, they're all in a different bucket. None of these things matter until we understand what the customer is buying or what they need to buy, in which case you can say, look, here's the list of all the things that we do. Here are the 3 that you need. Okay? Now, it may be a great opportunity to do an upsell and say, well, wait a minute, what's this post-event web development? And then you explain, well, look, after the event's over, you want people able to come back, interact, have a chat community, add new content to it, bring the speakers back in another month for a little Q&A office hour session, okay? And that keeps the knowledge and the learning and the energy of the event going forward. Would that be helpful for you? In which case, we just added an option to our proposal. You with me? So this is a tool online. I will share this with you. Please wander around in it, have fun with it. You won't be able to do anything in that tool. You'll have to copy it and make your own tool for it. But it's just an app inside of Google, which should be very easy for all of you to use. Or you can duplicate it and use it whatever graphic system that you want to put it into. Just a reminder, I got some more I want to talk about. In terms of the virtual meeting matrix and how the different types of meetings need to be framed. But if you got questions, the Q&A box is great. Actually, our chats have been busy. They've been hard to find the questions, but if you want to put a question in the chat, I'll look there as well. Or maybe one of you will answer the question in the chat. So, oh, yeah, I'll take this comment though while we're at it. Why so heavy an emphasis to Zoom? Zoom does not an effective live conference make. Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. Your customers don't agree with you because it's an easy tool for them to use, right? So don't let your prejudices of Zoom knock you out of a job. And I'm going to show you that. There's a great segue into what I'm going to talk about right now, because Zoom is a tool that people are familiar with. Okay? And there are 4 types of Zoom. You're going to say, no, there aren't. Yeah, there are. Listen to me. There are 4 types of Zoom. There are 3 types of digital conferences. There are 3 types of hybrid events. And one event could utilize all of these approaches, any combination of them, or they can live inside of one. Make your understanding and how you present virtual meetings to your customers so easy that your grandparents get it. And that is the level. Grandpa has to get it. Okay? Your crazy aunt has to get it. Okay? Otherwise, your customers aren't going to get it. If you can't make it so simple that they get it, what business do you have talking to a customer, right? So here's a tool that you might create, which would be one of the things that I showed you on the sales process tool, that if you're new to events, here's our guide to the digital event world. Now, I just created this in PowerPoint. You can create it in anything that you want. You're welcome to come. I guess I'll post this on the replay page because you can copy it. So here's a quick guide. To my commenter, I'm going to talk about meetings using Zoom, because that is a solution that people understand as a great entry point to meet your customer where they are. If all they understand is Zoom, we need to start there. Here are 4 kinds of Zoom. There's just Zoom. It's that you do it yourself. It's got some limitations. And here's a link to a guide for normal people, which is clearer and easier to understand than the Zoom help desk. Here's how you use Zoom. Go forth and prosper, have a good time. But you can do better Zoom. And here's some features on Zoom that more advanced users are familiar with that will maybe improve the aesthetic, improve the experience for your attendees, and give you these capabilities. And oh, by the way, here's a guide to that you can download. Notice that there's a link, there's a call to action that takes them to more information. I don't try and cram everything in one document. There's what I call the Zoom fix, okay? There are limitations to Zoom, as my commenter points out. So here's how we fix those limitations. You know, we can pre-record segments. We can take Zoom and we can send it to a streaming platform, okay? Here's a guide about how all that works so that you can visualize that, see some pretty pictures and clouds and arrows that show people how that works. And then there's the Zoom bypass. We still use Zoom, but we're going to put the entire event on a streaming platform, and Zoom is a source and a staging area. The control room manages the streaming feed. Oh, here's a guide you could download to better understand that and see if it applies to your business. Right? So there's a step 1. So if we're in the Zoom world, we're meeting them at Zoom, here's where I can take them to educate how you can help them do a better Zoom. Now, if we're starting at virtual conference, then let's talk about virtual conferences. I said there's 3 types of virtual conferences. I know there's more. Make up your own marketing materials, right? There's the Zoom virtual conference. Again, we have to go back to Zoom and talk about how you do a virtual conference in Zoom, because we're probably meeting them at where they are, so Zoom has to be part of the conversation. Tell them about managed breakouts, tell them about archiving, and here's a link to download, right? The streaming platform virtual conference, okay? I've got all my sources coming in, I've got sponsors, I've got expos, I've got presenters, I have breakout rooms, chat rooms, all these things that we can put up to a platform. I can accommodate sponsors, ads, blah, blah, blah. Here's a guide. All right. And the third is the immersive experience. We're going to create a community platform for pre and post networking on the event. It's not just about the live presentations. It's about the build up to it and the follow on after it. There's lots of networking options. There's breakout rooms relevant to a topic. There's office hours rooms with the presenters. There's a cocktail hour where you can meet colleagues with similar interests. There's a virtual expo that you can wander through. or you can check your preferences and we would tell you which sessions are best for you. How awesome would that be? Oh, here's a guide. But wait, we're not done. We're still in the matrix. What about a hybrid event? Well, hybrid events are really about audience prioritization. So separate yourself from all the platforms in the room. Which audience is most important? And that's a fair question. It's not asking which child do you love best. In a hybrid event, there's typically an audience that's more important than the other, but you can also prioritize both of them. So what does that look like? Okay, I want to do an in-person event. If the people there are the higher priority, I can do a fixed stream for the people who aren't there. We've been doing this for years. All of you people who say, oh, we've done streaming events for years, that's what you did. Okay, that's so 2018. Now, if we say that the online audience is more important, then really what I've got is a studio audience, and now I'm doing television, right? So here's what that looks like. But if I say that both audiences are important, we are now doing 2 shows, and each group is in each other's show. So I've got 2 shows within shows. And here's what that looks like. Because when the live audience is not engaged, the remote audience is, and vice versa. So I have to have something for them during each other's transitions. Because remember, my virtual audience cannot sit, like your audience. They can't be in a ballroom for 8 hours in a day, and they can get up, go to the bathroom, do whatever, follow the agenda. A virtual audience needs longer breaks. They need smaller bites of information to not lose interest. So their show is different than the live audience's show. Here's what that looks like. Download the guide. Right? This is the level of conversation we need to be having with our potential customers so that we're not writing proposals for stuff that's never going to happen because we didn't make the buyer smarter and we didn't speak to what they actually need. We just spoke to what they asked for and we rushed out to get a proposal. Now, this is a lot of marketing materials that I'm talking about. A little daunting, perhaps, for some of you. Let me just give you a couple of tips on developing these resource or document pages. And they can be web pages, they can be PDFs. There's lots of different, they can be both. There's lots of ways to approach this. For each one of them, focus on a single issue or topic. You can always link to more information. Don't put anything more than what I had on some of these slides. In fact, some of them, you might have a document on an in-person event audience prioritization, okay? Maybe not. Small bites of information. Follow the same style and format for all of things. Make sure everything's branded for your company in the same way. Graphics designer, just be consistent, work from templates. The document can be multiple pages, but keep the ratio of images very high, more images than words. Infographics are great. Illustrations are great. Short, brief descriptions of things. If they need a deeper conversation and understanding, the call to action out of one of these documents is that conversation. We don't want to give them every little detail. We just want to, again, meet them where they are. So hire a freelance graphics designer. They're all hungry right now, as we are. Everybody's working on all of this stuff together. So I see a couple of questions that come up. I'm going to get to some questions. I want to talk about next week, which will be the last one of this webinar series. We're going to talk about financials. We're going to talk about KPIs for the agency model. We're going to talk about job cost analysis in the agency model. So we're going to update what you know about judging the viability of your business and the success of your business in context of some of the models that I've laid out over the past several weeks. So we're going to make sure we're going to do a check-in on your cash flow runway. You should know the answer. If I ask you right now, how long is your cash flow runway? You better know that answer within a week or two. You better be able to say, yeah, we're absolutely good through November, and then it gets a little sketchy, but we have some business that will get us farther down the road if it happens. You need pretty precise answers, and you need to update them every week, because goodness knows we are nowhere out of the woods, and most of us have not gotten our overhead down enough to survive on a hope, on a wing and a prayer. Now, all right, let's do some questions on this, and let's see what we got here. So is any, I'll skip the technical questions here. Bandwidth. All right, interesting chat. I'll go back and look at all of that. Rob's asking about, has anyone experienced what is going on with the downgraded streaming resolutions except for one-to-ones? And I don't even know the context of that question, and I don't have an answer for you, but hopefully you, the community, can answer that for him. And what other questions do we have? We're a little thin on questions here today. Was I that good? Either it means I was really good, which is not likely, or I went so far afield that you haven't had time to formulate some questions. So let me insert some questions that you probably should be asking at this point. Is writing a proposal better than not writing a proposal? Why should we just not write a proposal if there's any chance at all we'll get that piece of work? Here's my issue with writing proposals where you have not prepared the customer well. One, as I said earlier in the presentation, there's a false hope that goes along with that. How many of you have told me that your Q4 is in great shape? You know, back in April, May, early June, you go, yeah, we're having some cancellations. Doesn't look like we're going to have any June business, but that's okay. October, November, December is going like gangbusters. How's it looking now? Okay. What we had happen was a lot of things postponed into the fourth quarter. And now that they've sat there for a while and we've never gotten through the first wave of the pandemic here in the US, those events are either postponing again, but most things don't postpone twice, they cancel. Right? Now, have you gone back to those clients and revisited with them their current situation to get ahead of their needs? Saying, hey, I know you didn't want to take this to a virtual event, and you just wanted to do a streaming hybrid event. Can we have that conversation again? Because you need to know that we can do this for you. A lot of those things, and what I'm hearing is that the number of jobs sitting in Potentia seems to be diminishing, and the number of people who are not getting back to you is going up. What does that tell somebody who forecasts revenue for many, many years? My revenue is getting ready to tank again. So the reason we don't want to write proposals for business that's not really there, because we think our calendar's full and we slow down. We keep working quite so hard. The more you talk to customers, the more you guide them to a solution that works for them, the less they will rely on your competitors to put out competing quotes and experience, I see the question, experience what I've seen people complaining about on Facebook. Customer asked for something that looked like it was worth $100,000 and somebody did it for $10,000. Welcome to the pandemic. That stuff happens in times like this. But if we had done a better job of educating that client, taking them through their needs, making them understand how important each and all that was, they might have questioned the value of that $10,000 quote a little bit more closely. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody wasn't selling a loss leader or doing a favor. You know, they could be proposing exactly what that customer needs and giving a lot of stuff away for free, but chances are the customer thinks they're getting more than they're actually going to get. And not educating the client to be their own advocate on their project will lead to that sort of situation. So that rush to write a proposal, people sent out $100,000 proposals. Somebody else sent out a $10,000 proposal. How do you think it's going to go? All right, another question here. How do we charge or educate the customer who has never done a stream over the protocols they need to follow on set? So getting them in the frame of mind. Yeah, so it's another document. So I'll finish the question. So getting them in the frame of mind that it is live, and then what they say and do can't be retracted or done over. How they act on camera is different to live on stage. Good. Educating them about this risk and danger. Again, another one topic document. What's the, what are the mistakes that people commonly make when they work from a studio? work live from a studio is they think it's recorded and they say things that can't be fixed. So how do we avoid this? Well, one, we rehearse. You talk about the importance of rehearsals. Give them the 3 things that they need to do to help reduce the chances of having an on-air disaster. We rehearse, we use teleprompter, and we put a delay on it. I don't know what else you want to put in there, right? But it is an education process, and it's in little chunks. I thought you were going to go to the protocols of, how to do social distancing, wear a mask when you're not on camera, how to keep away from the technicians so that they don't run the risk of being contaminated, that sort of thing. Again, these are all documents in small bites with links to more information for the people who want to better understand it. So anything that you think is important, capture it in a small template, brand it, and make it available. Make it a link on your website, but make sure everything cascades so that they don't get to the 3rd or 4th link without getting through the ones that are in front of it that set it all up. So good question. Question from a comment here about, I like the idea of creating a PDF. I feel worn out creating multiple proposals just to give the potential client a rough estimate of pricing. Yeah. Stuart says he hasn't been getting many phishing inquiries for streaming events. No, but maybe they should be streaming events. But there has been a flurry of inquiries about drive-in events and theaters, none of which have been financially viable. You can use the same process. So when somebody calls up and says, hey, we want to do a drive-in theater, we want to have a drive-in graduation, whatever that thing may be, use the template to take them through the same process. Make a column for processing a customer who is not familiar with doing events, that wants to do an outdoor event. And here's the information that you need to have. Okay, here are the location considerations. Here's the PDF of the 5 things that you need to consider before choosing your outdoor location. Okay, power, parking, egress, level, solid ground, that sort of thing. So develop those things and drop them in your template. It should be as easy as building a PowerPoint. Anytime you think of something or need something, just capture it in that PowerPoint, generate a PDF from it, and you've got the next one. Tom, next question. How often, when building a proposal on a purely virtual option of a show for an association group, for example, are you being asked, how will this virtual solution compare to what we've had for years and years? Good question, right? In other words, how to keep them focused on what you can provide them and get them away from drawing so many comparisons to a regular live event that they're used to. Each of you may have your own style, interrelational style. I am a person, my style, and part of this is, from working with horses, because my wife's had a lot of horses, and being a martial artist, is I tend to give to pressure. And if somebody is giving me pressure to compare something to how's this going to compare to what I normally do it, I'm going to be straight up with them. I'm going to say, it's not going to compare at all, okay, except on these points. Or here are the places that are going to be similar, and here are the places that are not going to be similar. Give them something to validate their concern that they want to know. They really like what they used to have. So tell them, here are the 3 things that you will find that are very normal. Here are things that are different, but you will find that your audience adapts to very, very well. And here are 3 things that you're going to have to educate your audience about so that they can get more out of the event. And this is where we really need to focus our energy, right? I just made another PDF, another document. How do I make the transition from my in-person event to a streaming event? What do I expect? What should my audience expect? What are they going to be familiar with? What do I need to educate them about? Boom, another document. Good question. I think it's a good question if I actually have an answer. Yeah, the mindset for a studio option needs to match a live show, just as mentioned for rehearsals, prompters. Yeah. Again, I do stuff like this cold. I present for a living. Most of our clients don't, and we've seen people who just get up on stage without a rehearsal and what that's like. A streaming events, it's going to be even worse. All right, another question here. I feel like the hardest part is trying to find out what all the products that are available for virtual conferences and events and a comparison between them all. Is there a resource that gives a comparison of the main points? Absolutely there is. I have no idea where it is. Google it, share it with the rest of us. My general comment on that is don't worry about all the things that you don't know. What's really valuable to you right now are the things that you are capable of doing. Look at the capabilities. As I was telling a salesperson on a coaching call earlier today, you need to attend events online. If you have not been attending events, if you didn't do InfoComm Connect, if you didn't do the live events forum last week, which was really more of a conference than a webinar, or anybody else's event, then you're not educating yourself about how this stuff works so that you can speak more credibly to your customers. Then once you know how it works, you're in a much better position to judge the products that are out there. And as a community, the more of you that can visit together somewhere, the more you can share with each other. You know, one of the catchwords in meetings with professionals these days, you know, people throw out OBS. Okay, that is a product that does a thing. There's 1,000 products that do that, but there's only a few that do it that way. But what's the problem you're trying to solve? So rather than try and find out all the things that switch, okay, what's the thing about switching you're trying to solve? Or is it simply what do you need to understand about how switching for streaming works and educate yourself on that? And in the process, you will learn about products and those recommendations. So, all right. I think this is a comment over in the chat. The live events industry tends to be very late to get the call from sponsors. How do we get them to understand that hybrid events take more planning and time? Well, first of all, I'll challenge you that maybe they don't. Maybe hybrid events don't take more planning and time. Maybe it's our lack of comfort or understanding of it. So if somebody wants to get involved in something, anticipate that, create a path for that. Hybrid events are going to move very quickly because the audience, the live audience, is going to be 1/10 or 1/4 the size that it was before, which means the selection of options of venues is huge. If I don't need to get 5,000 people in a ballroom, I only need to get 250, how many venues can accommodate that? So the timing on these events is much shorter because they can be. And if it's completely virtual, why do you need any more time to plan an event than it takes to promote the event? So we've got to change our mindset, which is built on, I've got to do a rigging plot and get 17 layers of drawings together and 4 site surveys, into, I just need a platform and I need to help the client get their content through the interwebs. So we need to change some of our mindsets about how we do these things. And I'm going to take this, we're at the end of the hour. I'm going to take this last question here. Do you have an updated outlook through the end of the year? Should streaming be our main focus for the next year? Streaming should probably be your only focus through the end of the year. If you do get a hybrid event, good on you. Lucky you should do that. Streaming should be I would be leading with streaming and be thrilled if somebody has a hybrid going into next year, particularly in the US. Other parts of the world have a different timeline than we do. I'm doing some polling right now. Some of you may have responded to some private inquiries I've sent out. And most people are, from people like you, are saying middle of next year before we start seeing the opportunity to have the kinds of events that we've had in the past. We need lead time in order for those events to happen. So if your regular August gig is a conference for 3,000 people, that conference better be viable in March or February in order for them to do the planning to do a 3,000 person event with social distancing and all the protocols they're going to need. They're not going to be able to pull the trigger on that at the last minute. So we'll have a good idea, and as we're learning now, events in October are dropping like flies. November, December is probably not far behind. So focus on streaming. That's why today's webinar was really about streaming, because I want you to find the show in streaming that you can do, the business that you can sell. We're going to keep our cash flow runway going. There's a meme floating around on social media now about those 3 little words I've always wanted you to say, which is house to half. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. So thank you, guys. We got one more of these next week. Then I'll have an announcement for you, hopefully about something new and fun and exciting. And we're going to keep working on getting through this. And thank you for all your support. I'll have the recording up shortly. And I look forward to more questions from you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.